Vasishta continued. With all the desires in the mind utterly silenced, and having well grounded himself in the plane of non-dual consciousness, sage Vitahavya uttered the holy word Om. Contemplating the esoteric significance of the Om, he perceived the error of confusing the reality with the appearance. I've spoken before about the esoteric significance of Om, how it's like a sonic arrow pointing us to ourself, right through to the silence which ensues after the final nasal quality subsides. By the total abandonment of all concepts and percepts, he renounced the three worlds. He became utterly quiescent, as when the potter's wheel comes to rest. By the utterance of the Om, he dispelled the webs of sense organs and their objects, even as wind disperses scent. After this he pierced the darkness of ignorance. He beheld the inner light for just a split second, but renounced that too immediately. He transcended both light and darkness. There remained just a trace of thought form. This too the sage cut asunder in the twinkling of an eye through the mind. Now the sage remained in the pure infinite consciousness, not modified in the least. It was like the state of consciousness of the just born infant. So there are so many subtle things that our attention can get hooked into as we turn it back on itself, and as we try to remain in that condition, remain in that awareness. There's all sorts of mystical experiences that can happen. There's all sorts of subtle experiences. We could be getting caught up in our own imagination. He abandoned all objectivity of consciousness and even the slightest movement of consciousness. All objectivity means notions of objects, abandoning all notions of objects. He crossed a state known as pasyanti. This is a state of peace, of tranquility, a transcendental condition. It means there was no more conflict within him. There was no more conflict within his psyche. And reached to deep sleep consciousness. And this is the imperturbable state. He continued beyond that too and reached the transcendental or turiya consciousness. This is the fourth, so-called fourth state. It is a state of bliss that is not its description, which is both the is and the is not, both something and not something, light and darkness. So we can't actually ascribe existence or non-existence to this awareness. It is full of non-consciousness and objectless consciousness. It can only be indicated by negation. Not this, not this. This is the famous Neti. You can't see anything about it. He became that which is beyond description. That state is the void, Brahman, consciousness, the Purusha of the Sankhya, Ishvara of the yogi, Siva, time, Atman or self, non-self, the middle, etc., of the mystics holding different views. It is that state which is established as the truth by all these scriptural viewpoints, that which is all, in that the sage remained truly established. It isn't a mystical state though, it's simply consciousness. It's being described in these very lofty terms, but when it comes down to it, it's simply our own fundamental consciousness. It's not about different states that we ascend to and eventually arise to. It's simply a refinement of the realization of our own consciousness. When the sage had thus become one with the infinite consciousness, the body decomposed and the elements returned to their respective source. Thus have I told you, O Ram, the auspicious story of the sage Vitahavya. Reflect over it. Whatever I have said to you, and whatever I shall say to you now is born of direct perception, direct experience, and deep contemplation. We get this sense, don't we, that it is born of direct observation. We're not just getting a rehashing of the usual words. Meditate upon this, O Ram, and attain wisdom. Liberation is attained only by wisdom or self-knowledge. Only through such wisdom does one go beyond sorrow, destroy ignorance, and attain perfection. What has been described as Vitahavya is only a notion in our mind. So am I, and so are you. All these senses and the whole world are nothing but the mind. What else can the world be, O Ram?